All right. Good morning. My name is Blasius, and I'm General Manager at Azure and for General Purpose Compute. Thank you for joining us in the Ignite session here in Seattle and virtually around the world. I'm here with Aung.
Hi everyone. Good morning. I'm Aung Oo, General Manager of Azure Storage Team. It's great to be here. At Microsoft, it always starts with customers, and this session is no different. We have a lot to cover in this session, but I would highlight two things. One, we have customers from Haynes and Intesa Sanpaolo with us, sharing their journey to Azure. And one of the highlights of this session is towards the end, we are going to demonstrate Copilot, Azure Copilot session. We have a lot to cover, so I'm going to turn it over to Aaron. Take it away, Aaron.
Thank you. When we talk to IT leaders and professionals like you, we often hear that they're increasingly looking to accelerate innovation through cloud-native service and harness the power of AI. At the same time, there's still present-day challenges such as achieving the right balance of performance to meet demands, optimizing investments to keep costs at bay, and protecting against rising security threats. Building resilience and ensuring business continuity. We continue to prioritize investments in alignment with what matters to you most, empowering your organization to be future ready. Azure is the world's computer, providing comprehensive support across your entire technology estate, including applications and workloads, databases and operating systems, and infrastructure. With Azure, organizations can optimize ROI, achieve the necessary scale without sacrificing performance, and benefit in security and resilience. IaaS is foundational to Azure, and we adopted early on systems-level approach to ensure that not only our compute, storage, and networking solutions are best in class, but that every system is optimized to meet your needs. With Azure, you get global scale and local presence. In fact, Azure's global infrastructure spans over 60 regions worldwide with more than 300 physical data centers and one of the largest interconnected networks on the planet. We continue to grow. We've announced and launched over 20 new regions in the past 5 years and continue to bring new availability zones to each of these additional regions. Our core infrastructure is world-class in terms of choice, scale, and performance. We offer massive compute capacity with a broad range of VMs, fast scalable storage, and best-in-class network performance. How do we accomplish this? Through continuous innovation. And I'm going to share some of that with you today. Satya talked about one such product innovation this morning, Azure Cobalt. Azure Cobalt leverages ARM IP for exceptional performance per watt efficiency. Cobalt 100 is the first in this series and is designed with a focus on performance per watt and features built-in regulation and dynamic voltage capabilities so that we can tune the per-core performance and power consumption for a wide range of potential workloads and needs. It is built on modern 5-nanometer process technology and features 128 cores and 12 channels of DDR5 memory running at the highest performance. Our initial results indicate it delivers the fastest ARM CPU performance in the cloud today. This is very exciting for our customers and for everyone associated with the Azure ecosystem. Next up in the infrastructure innovation space, Azure Boost, enabling new levels of performance on Azure. Today, we are announcing the general availability of Azure Boost, a system designed by Microsoft for offloading server virtualization processes onto purpose-built hardware and software. Starting today, every new Azure VM will integrate Azure Boost technology, making networking and storage solutions one of the fastest in the cloud for everything from specialized AI clusters to general purpose compute. Azure Boost will enable customers to achieve up to 200 gigabits of networking bandwidth, remote storage performance of 12.5 gigabits per second, and throughput up to 650,000 IOPS, as well as local storage of up to 17.3 gigabits per second and 3.8 million IOPS. Let's see this in action. Let the demo roll.
To demonstrate the remote storage performance of Azure Boost, we will use two Windows VMs with the same Intel Gen 8 Ice Lake CPU, using the same number of vCPUs, same amount of memory, and number of disks and disk types. The one on the left is an EBS v5 VM, and the one on the right is one of the latest Azure Boost VMs. We'll use a tool called 𝗦𝗽𝗲𝗍𝗀 to execute 4 𝗾 block size random reads to show a side-by-side view of how the remote storage IOPS performance compares between the two. Now that everything is configured, let's go ahead and start the 𝗦𝗽𝗍𝗀𝗍 and execute the test. On the left, you can see that we have an EBS v5 VM operating with about 260,000 IOPS. And on the right, you can see the setup for the new Azure Boost VM with the exact configuration, hitting consistently far above 650,000 IOPS, more than twice that of the EBS v5 VM. Now we'll set up the 𝗦𝗽𝗍𝗀𝗍𝗀 on the same VMs with the same configuration to compare the storage throughput. You can see as we let the test run, on the left, we are getting 5 gigabyte per second storage throughput with the existing VM. And on the right, we're getting much higher throughput at 12.5 gigabyte per second on the new Azure Boost VM.
We're highlighting a number of important IaaS system-level innovations with Cobalt and with Boost. But there are many other innovations across Azure Compute to help maximize ROI and strengthen security and resiliency without compromising on scale and performance. You can see a subset on the slide behind me, but this includes capabilities such as VMS regional and zonal migrations, support for ARM-based VMs in the Azure Marketplace, and trusted launch configurations as default for VMs deployed in the Azure portal. With VM hibernation is also now in preview. With this feature, memory state is saved to allow customers for a quick restart, but only paying for the VM time that they use. Another call out, Spot priority mix for Azure Spot VMs. Customers can mix Spot and standard VMs and scale both in a high availability manner. This capacity allows for auto scaling of defined ratios, providing even more flexibility and cost optimizations. For more on storage optimizations, I'm going to turn it over to Aung.
Thank you, Aaron. On the storage front, we have a number of innovations as well as important releases to address different scenarios. I will just highlight a few from each of the category. From block storage, we recently announced snapshots and backup for both premium SSD v2 and UltraDisk to enhance BCDR scenarios. We also are improving UltraDisk throughput and IOPS to be comparable with Azure Boost capabilities that Aaron just mentioned. For object storage, we are also announcing cold storage tier, which allows you to tier down the data for infrequent access with instant access. We also are announcing Azure Storage Actions, which allows you to manage billions of storage objects seamlessly, and the demo will come later. In Azure Files, we are announcing a preview of metadata caching, which will significantly improve performance to support metadata-heavy workload like batch processing or interactive web applications that touch many files. With metadata caching, you can achieve 30 to 40% lower latency and up to 60% more IOPS and throughput out of Azure files. Performance number will vary by different workloads, so we encourage you to try out our preview program. In file storage, we are also, we are also announcing NFS snapshots as well as geo-redundancy for large file shares. So without further ado, let's see the demonstration of Azure Storage Actions.
In this example, I have a set of customer engagement data in a Blob container. Let's say I need to apply data protection to all the logs of customer support calls so that data is retained for a duration of 1 year. I can start creating my Azure Storage action from the marketplace and enter the basic information. When I click Next, I can start identifying the objects I want to operate on based on their properties. Let's say my customer support call logs are identified with the blob tag content equals support, and the file extension is equal to .log. Now I can select the operations we want to perform. In my example, I want to set the blob immutability policy to retain it for 365 days. Let's also update the blob tag to remind us that it now meets the retention policy. I can now validate the condition we've composed against our test data to confirm that I'm targeting the right blobs. Finally, I can assign the task to execute on all or some of the objects in an account. I can have it run just once or on a schedule. I can also specify a location for the execution report. I could also add more storage accounts where the action should be executed. And that's it. Once I finish creating the assignments and tags, it will start to execute. Actions will automatically scale its execution based on objects I've targeted and the operations it needs to perform. All of this is secured with managed identities. Once a task execution has completed, the portal shows key metrics such as counts of objects evaluated, attempted operations, successes, and failures. Clicking on these metrics allows us to drill down into specific instances and access reports with execution details. With Azure Storage Actions, data management of your stored data is simple, secure, and scalable.
Well, let's go to networking. Networking is the lifeblood of Azure that delivers the scalability, performance, and reliability that customers expect. And we continue to introduce many services and capabilities in networking and networking security. Today, we are announcing auto-scaling for Azure ExpressRoute Preview, which allows customers to configure their connectivity to achieve up to 40 gigabits per second connectivity to VMs and private endpoints defined in a virtual network. And it's over ExpressRoute private peering. With this new capability, previous limitations on data path and control plane are no longer a bottleneck, which is enabling customers to achieve higher bandwidth connectivity to virtual network resources. We have also recently announced new capabilities such as Azure Firewall Basic and Azure Bastion Developer, which provide cost-effective network security, and Azure Application Gateway for containers, which offers application load balancing and dynamic traffic management capabilities for Kubernetes workload. With that, it's my pleasure to welcome Ashish Agrawal, Head of IT of Cloud Engineering at Kraft Heinz, to share his journey of digital transformation on Azure. So Ashish,
thank you.
Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Yeah, I'm Ashish Agrawal, Head of Cloud Engineering at Kraft Heinz. Today, I'll be providing insights into Kraft Heinz's digital transformation journey, including what challenges we faced, what lessons we learned, and how we address those using the IaaS solutions Microsoft offers. Let me start with walking you through the digital transformation journey at Kraft Heinz, right? So back in April 2022, Kraft Heinz and Microsoft announced that we are joining forces and developing various solutions designed to accelerate the digital transformation and enable more resilient supply chain. This initiative is one of Kraft Heinz's largest technology investments to date, and it's a key driver for companies' ambitious Agile at Scale initiative. And it's spanning across 3 horizons, we call it, Horizon 1, 2, and 3. Horizon 1 is focused more on the core, and Horizon 2 is more on the products that we are building, the digital products that we are building, and Horizon 3 is more the exponential bets, we call it, the products that we have never built, the business opportunities that we have never tapped into, and things like that. Let me walk you through the highlights of Horizon 1 today, because this session is more focused on IaaS. Horizon 1 is more focused on our data center migration journey, and primarily there are 2 kind of workloads we have, SAP on Azure and then non-SAP workloads. For the SAP on Azure, we have recently completed moving our EMEA SAP landscape to Azure. Now we're focusing on North America and LATAM, along with some global systems like PO, BARDS, BOBJ, and other bolt-on systems. For non-SAP, we're done with about 71% application migrations and about 94% designs for those migrations that we have to do. There are lots of numbers here. I'll not go into each of these because of the lack of the time. But let me highlight a few areas, right? We used our partnership with Microsoft around storage, for example. We're using Storage Mover in preview to move more than 200 terabytes of file shares that we have to Azure files. We have improved a lot. We made a lot of improvements in our security posture with various services available out there. Other thing that we did is, we've improved our server build process, and about 80% improvements in that. Faster builds and efficient builds and things like that. And then significant performance improvements with Azure NetApp files and things like that, right? Some of the lessons we learned are around enabling accelerated networking as we build the VMs, and in scenarios where you run SAP workloads on M-series machines, for example, consider enabling write accelerator, things like that. For HANA, we leveraged ANF, and as we migrate our SAP workloads, we are ensuring that we can define our move groups based on how applications interact with each other, and move those together. So those are some of the key lessons that we learned. Our foundation for this migration was the global footprint that we established early on. We built 6 landing zones in 6 different global regions, ready to move with the full-scale migrations. We have also built our express route connectivities across the globe. We've also purposefully built 10 gig circuits just dedicated for migration, because we didn't want in the transient state, we didn't want our migration traffic to impact the production traffic. So we've done all of those things to kind of get ready for that. Now this is where We partnered with Microsoft early on to develop a reference architecture that would equally apply for both S/4HANA journey that we are on, as well as the Suite on HANA migration that we are doing right now in high availability environments that support best-in-class DR as well. And then, right now what you see is a very simplified view of various services and features that we have enabled. You can see some of the key components like SAP Central Servers, and we're using Linux clusters for that. We've used Azure NetApp file for the HA for central services, and then here's a view of our migration waves. We've distributed our workloads across 3 major waves, and our rollouts are every 15 days for non-SAP applications. But what we have done is we have aligned those across these 3 waves. And as you can see, wave 1 was more focused on our EMEA landscape. Wave 2 is North America, LATAM. Some of the key applications that you see out there is ECC, PO, BODS, BOBJ. As you can see, we have not just done a lift and shift here. We're pretty much re-architecting a lot of our workloads. We've also ensured that as we move, we take care of a lot of platform issues, lifecycle issues, and things like that. We've also moved quite a bit away from Oracle. For example, our backend systems for SAP were Oracle on-prem. We've moved from Oracle to ASE, HANA, and SQL Server for most of our key workloads. That have given us a lot of performance improvement. As we move, we are ensuring that we can upgrade, not only look at the operating systems, but also upgrade our application layers and things like that. And as we did all this, and as I was telling in the beginning, 3 horizon. So our Microsoft partnership is across these horizons. So for example, from Horizon 1 perspective, all the Microsoft architects and account team, premier teams, and all of that are interacting day-to-day basis on proactive planning and reactive reviews and things like that. We are also using Azure Event Management Service, for all our large cutovers. On Horizon 2, we have multiple teams like industry, ISE, ISD teams, and the partnership goes all the way top to top and things like that, right? So we were discussing all these Horizon 1, 2, 3 initiatives along with Microsoft and partnering on the whole digital transformation journey. Over to you, Adam.
Yeah, thank you. Yep, you know what? It doesn't say pause for applause, but thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. One of the best parts of my job is actually working with customers like Ashish and hearing about their cloud journeys and digital transformations. There's also another part is that I get to talk about like what helps drive it. And I was talking with Aung before the session, and I was like, we're going to talk about Linux, really? I was like, yes, you got to talk about Linux. You got to talk about the fact that like AI and a lot of the things that we're chatting about today that are throughout the session are all driven by Microsoft Linux. And our commitment to open source and Linux runs far and deep. And I could tell you a little more about some of the features that we have up on the screen and how it's fundamental. But instead, I think I'm going to turn it over to another customer so that we can hear their journey about how they're using and partnering with Linux, or with Red Hat Linux and Microsoft in order to drive innovations in their cloud and their transformation. And so with that, I would like to bring to the stage Alessia Dadone, who is from Italy's bank in Sao Paulo. Benvenuta. Welcome.
Yeah.
Well, I'll skip ahead. I'll get you to your spot.
Okay.
I'm sorry about that.
Yeah, no.
There you go.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, everyone. I'm Alessia, and I'm a cloud engineer for Intesa Sanpaolo Bank. Today, I'm going to show you a high-level architectural infrastructure of our OpenShift cluster. As you can see, we have a cluster deployed both on-premises and on cloud. In particular, on Azure Cloud, we have 3 regions where Milan represents the most important one because it is very close to our on-premise data centers. For moving workloads from the on-premise cluster to the Azure one, we developed an Ansible automation that just needs a few inputs, and that is very important also as a business continuity and disaster recovery solution. So the application doesn't know where the cluster is deployed, thanks to another abstraction layer that is called Application Delivery Controller. For deploying cluster on Azure, we used an installer provisioned installations that creates Azure virtual machines based on a configuration file. On the file, there are informations like how many worker nodes you want, on which zones, and other information like that. We started with this approach because it was very flexible and it fits very well with our networking model. But of course, the next step is to try with the managed solution. So now you are maybe wondering why Intesa San Paolo chose Azure combined to OpenShift. The first reason is the strong partnership between these two companies that guarantee a consistent management of containers. The second reason is the high level of scalability, reliability, and efficiency that Azure provides to OpenShift cluster. In particular, you can scale up or down the cluster whenever you need without losing time or money, like in the on-premise data center. Another reason to choose these two technologies is the rich ecosystem of services that Azure provides. For example, Azure Container Registry or Microsoft Entra ID. The last but not least reason are the security features that both these two technologies focused on. In particular, they are all role-based access control model. So in conclusion, we can say that we choose these technologies in order to increase efficiency and reduce and speed up time to markets, thanks to all the features that I have described before. So thank you very much for your time. Bye.
Grazie, Alessia. Now, to recap, we have shared a ton of innovations that will help increase scale and performance, future-proofing customers' investments in Azure. But we also hear how customers are using these innovations in strategic partnerships to drive success. Now on to another top of mind for customers: optimizing costs and maximizing ROI. And Azure's commitment here is comprehensive. Services, pricing models, and tools all come together to help our customers optimize their costs for the largest ROI. Azure offers a wide range of compute, networking, and storage services for better price, performance, and scale, cost efficiency. We have already highlighted several of the key innovations in this area today. But to further optimize for customer-specific needs, we also offer flexible pricing models and programs, such as Azure Hybrid Benefit, allowing customers to bring their existing Windows, SQL, Red Hat, SUSE licenses to Azure. And finally, Azure provides a deep set of tools to help you forecast your cloud bill, optimize your workload costs, and manage cloud spending. Highlighting the latest in price performance, the upcoming AMD VM Series 6, VMs featuring the 4th generation of AMD EPYC processor with and without local storage, and a broad range of memory and CPU ratios. The AMD-based VMs will be able to deliver 4 times increased local storage performance and up to 34% better price performance compared to previous AMD generations. Now, we also recently announced the general availability of our V2 Burstable series to help, which are available across Intel, AMD, and ARM. And these VMs provide up to 15% better price performance and 10 times better remote throughput. These are ideal workloads for the experience, workloads that experience unpredictable spikes and can take advantage of our existing portfolio of ARM-based VMs for general purpose, memory-intensive, and cost-optimized Linux workloads. Now I'll hand it back to Aung.
Thank you, Aaron. We can help you optimize costs by enabling you to scale cost effectively as your storage grows. And at Ignite last year, we announced one of our differentiated capability, preview of Azure Elastic SAN, the first fully managed SAN offering in the cloud. Today, we are excited to share new capabilities for Azure Elastic SAN. And as part of the preview refresh launch, customer can now enhance resiliency through snapshot support, lower TCO by scaling dynamically with live volume resize, and also we do secure storage. We do provide secure storage with support for server-side encryption with customer managed keys and get improved performance, 3.5x more throughput, and 25% lower latency. We are also announcing the preview of the Azure VMware Solution integration with Azure Elastic SAN. With this new capability, you can add Elastic SAN volume as data store for AVS without adding any AVS nodes, significantly reducing your total cost of ownership. You can also optimize costs by ensuring that your data is stored in the most appropriate and cost-effective way. We recently announced the general availability of the cold tier for Azure Blob storage, optimized for storing massive amounts of unstructured data. Cold tier is the most cost-effective tier for storing infrequently accessed data with long-term retention requirements while maintaining instant access. This allows you to maximize saving for scenarios such as backup media content and preserving medical images. We all know that migrating large amount of data to the cloud is a complex and costly process, and Azure Storage Mover is a fully managed migration services that enables you to migrate on-premise files and folders securely and effectively to Azure Storage. With that, I'm going to show a demo of how Azure Storage Mover works.
Let's take a look at Azure Storage Mover, our brand new fully managed migration service. In this demo, we'll migrate an on-premises SMB share through the Storage Mover agent into an Azure file share. All migration operations are managed from within a Storage Mover resource. Storage Mover enables you to manage your migrations at data center scale. The place to make your migration plans and organize them is the Migration Project Explorer. In here, we can see that I already have a migration project for our Contoso finance application. When I select this project, I'll see all the shares that I've set up to be migrated. So, before we can move our finance app to leverage Azure file shares, we'll need to complete the migration of one last SMB share. Let's take a closer look at this migration job. We can see that it has never been run. We can see the source and target information. Here is the migration agent we've selected, and we can see it's online and ready to be used. With Storage Mover, you'll always remain in control of your migrations before, during, and after. Here we can review aspects of migration outcomes you can expect, and also change the copy mode if we want to. Let's run this job. The job is now queued to be picked up by the migration agent. Once the job is picked up, the agent runs a few checks and then starts migrating the files and folders from our source share with full fidelity. Everything that can be copied and stored will be migrated, including metadata. We are speeding this up and hitting refresh a few times to see the progress and monitor migration results. We haven't hit any issues in this migration. If there was even a single file left behind, the job would show as failed, and we'd see each failed item in the copy log down here. You could even jump straight to the error code documentation to find out how you can mitigate these issues. Then you can simply rerun your job. With an efficient Delta copy, a successful migration of your files to Azure will be a breeze.
So we've talked about infrastructure, cost optimizations, all critical for success and ensuring customers get the most out of their cloud investments. I'm going to touch briefly on security before we get to our last demo and discussion and our last guest. Security is more critical in the cloud than ever, and Azure offers a comprehensive end-to-end protection for workloads across hybrid and multi-cloud environments. Foundational security provided by security teams in physical data centers, data at rest, data in transit, and now data in work. We continue to innovate in protecting sensitive data. Microsoft is the leader in confidential computing, helping organizations with GPU data, general purpose data, and in containers. Now, with that, though, you probably look and say, like, hey, you've talked about security, you've talked about foundational IaaS, but you haven't talked about AI. Like, how could you possibly sit through a demo here this week without talking about AI? Well, with these new innovations comes choice, and more choices bring complexity. And that's where Microsoft Copilot for Azure comes in. The new tools help simplify IT operations, such as infrastructure deployment. And I'd like to invite Tanmay Gore, a product manager for Azure Compute, come on up, to show us how that's going to come together.
Thanks a lot, Aaron. Good afternoon, everyone. I want to start with a quick thought experiment. Imagine you are a chef with Azure.
Keep talking.
Yeah. Imagine you are a chef with Azure as your kitchen and Azure products and services as your ingredients or utensils. You need to cook a turkey, but you don't have the recipe. So you spend a lot of time and energy researching and experimenting with these ingredients to build that perfect recipe. But what if you had a Michelin-rated chef as your guide to build that recipe and to perfect it? Wouldn't your life be much more simpler? Today, I am super excited to show you how Microsoft Copilot for Azure would be a Michelin-rated chef to build the recipe of Azure infrastructure. How it would fundamentally transcend your experience and empower you to be successful and creative with Azure. I'll start my cooking by stating my intent to Copilot. Copilot will first ask me questions to better understand my application and my requirements and use it to improve its recommendations. Copilot is also using these questions to help me think holistically about the infrastructure beyond just the application. For example, considering security, high availability, cost, etc. In a sense, the more context I provide, the better the results. Next, I'll answer these questions. Here, I'm trying to deploy a dynamic, high-scale, high-IOPS website which frequently reads and writes to NoSQL key value store. I want my website to be protected against DDoS attacks and my database to be secure. I want my budget to be around $2,000 per month. I want control over the infrastructure, high resiliency, high availability, and compliance to GDPR guidelines. Copilot will use this context to first recommend me 2-3 architectures best aligned for my requirements. As you can see, it recommended me virtual machine scale set and Azure Kubernetes services with Cosmos DB, which aligns to my compliance requirements. Copilot is designed to help users make quick but educated decisions about their infrastructure. For example, here it gave me pros and cons for a quick comparison. If I need more details, I can ask for it. Copilot will now give me a detailed comparison across my factors of consideration and help me make the right decision. Since we are in an IaaS session, let's assume that my application isn't containerized. So I'll choose VMSS. Copilot considers my choice and now gives me recommendations for all the products and services required to build a complete infrastructure. For example, it recommended me virtual networks, private link, DDoS protection plans to get that secure environment. It also recommended me auto-scaling and load balancing for my scale and traffic management. If I need to better understand how each product will be configured, I can ask for it. Copilot is designed to automatically configure each product based on your requirements. For example, here it recommended me VMSS with the flexible orchestration mode, which gives me the control of the infra. It recommended instance repair and easy spread to get high availability, which I need. It understood my budget and my performance requirements and recommended our latest DAS v6 VM size, best suited for this scenario. This description is a great way for me to understand what my infrastructure is doing. But I need code to deploy it. So let's ask for it. Here, I chose ARM template, but I can also choose PowerShell or CLI, or in future, any other language I want. Copilot is pulling the code snippets for each of the product it recommended, configuring its properties based on my requirements, and then combining them into one template for easy deployment. This is how you can leverage Microsoft Copilot for Azure as your Michelin-rated chef to build the right infrastructure very quickly and effectively. I am super excited to announce that this experience is now available in limited preview for you to try. In future, Copilot can also enable deploying this code using Azure Portal. Thank you, and happy cooking. Back to you, Aaron.
Yeah, thank you very much, Tanmay. Thank you. Thank you all for attending. We really appreciated all of your attention today. We appreciated our customers coming and sharing their stories. I want to thank Aung for his time and the staff and, for putting all of this together. And I'd like to remind everybody that we have, on the session, we have open questions and experts waiting to answer those since we did not save time for Q&A during the session. Thank you and enjoy the rest of Ignite.
Yeah, thank you very much.